coin of kindness. The city of Viridia was a place of iron and ambition, where wealth was loud and poverty was a quiet, cold shadow. Its streets smelled of whetstone, coal smoke, and the faint, intoxicating aroma of fortunes being made. In a cramped, high alley off the main thoroughfare lived Maria, a young woman whose hands were perpetually stained with wax from the candles she made and sold near the temple gates. She lived a life perpetually on the edge of scarcity, but she possessed a spirit as bright and unwavering as the flames she tended. Her most pressing worry was the persistent, damp draft seeping through the rotting roof of the tenement she shared with her elderly, ailing grandmother. The roof repair required exactly 15 silver pieces, a sum that might as well have been a king's ransom. One frigid autumn evening, as Maria was scraping the last sliver of mutton fat from her pan, she paused, feeling something heavy shift in the deep pocket of her apron. She reached in and pulled out not a button or a scrap of thread, but a coin. It was unlike any currency she had ever seen. It was dull copper, heavy and warm to the touch, and worn smooth by centuries of handling. On one side, it bore no king's face, but the crude carving of a hand reaching out to another. She tried to remember where she'd found it, but the memory was a blank slate. She took it to the candlelight. It was heavier than a silver piece, but it was copper, and copper was worth almost nothing. Still, she clutched it, a small, irrational comfort against the crushing debt of the roof. The next morning, Maria walked past the shadowed mouth of her alley. Huddled in the recess was an old street sweeper named Bach, known for his relentless, shivering optimism despite his obvious hunger. He was nursing a raw, painful cough. Maria walked 3 steps past him. She thought of the roof, of the rain that would surely come, of her grandmother's feverish breathing. She calculated how many days she could eat if she spent that coin on cheap soup. Then she looked back at Bach, whose eyes were closed against the cold. The copper coin felt impossibly heavy in her palm. It wouldn't fix the roof. It wouldn't buy the medicine. But perhaps, just perhaps, it could buy a day of warmth for someone truly suffering. With a deep, painful breath, Maria turned back. She walked to the marketplace and, with the heavy copper coin, bought the largest, warmest wool shawl she could find, enough to swaddle Bach completely. It took every single copper coin in her small hoard, including the strange one. She walked back to the alley and wrapped the scarf around the old man, his eyes widening in stunned disbelief. "The cold is cruel, Bach," she whispered. "Take this warmth. May it last until spring." Bach wept, his gratitude a raw, pure sound that resonated deep within Maria. She walked away feeling lighter, yet utterly destitute. The roof debt remained, the purse was empty, and the great city felt colder than ever. That night, Maria wept a little herself before exhaustion claimed her. When she woke at dawn, her first instinct was to check her empty purse. She pulled open the worn leather string, expecting nothing. Inside, nestled at the bottom, was the copper coin. It was not only the coin, now somehow cleaner and radiating a faint, internal warmth, but beside it lay a small, perfectly preserved dried fish, enough sustenance for 3 good meals, and far more valuable than the copper coin itself. Maria stared. She shook the purse, but nothing else fell out. She had bought the shawl with the coin and a handful of her own meager coppers. She had certainly not bought a fish. She kept the incident silent, her mind racing. Coincidence? A neighbor's quiet kindness? She decided to test it. The next afternoon, she approached the struggling apprentice baker, a pale, tired boy named Zavi who desperately needed flour for his bread to sell, but whose supplies had been seized by a harsh creditor. Maria took the coin, now her only possession of value, and went to the miller. She bought a large sack of the highest quality rye flour and had it delivered to Zavi's shop, telling him only that it was from an anonymous benefactor who believed in his craft. It cost the copper coin and every last shred of silver she had scraped together from candle sales that morning. She walked home with a fluttering heart, the financial pain of her sacrifice offset by the image of Zavi's shocked, grateful face. The next morning, the coin was back. And this time, beside it lay a spool of perfectly spun, waterproof thread, the exact type she had needed for weeks to repair her leaky canvas awning above the candle stall. The realization settled on her. This was no ordinary coin. It was the coin of alms, an artifact of quiet magic. It was not a coin of wishes, but a coin of return. It would return to her only when given away in true, desperate, selfless kindness, and it would bring back not what she wanted, money for the roof, but what she truly needed, sustenance, functional supplies. It paid the balance of her self-sacrifice. Maria's quiet prosperity, the result of her continued, selfless cycling of the coin, did not go unnoticed in the sharp-eyed city of Viridia. Her landlord, Torvin, was a man whose soul was measured by the thickness of his ledger. He was sharp, merciless, and saw generosity as a sign of weakness. Torvin noticed that the struggling candle maker somehow had a steady supply of high-quality wax, fresh bread, and, most tellingly, she had paid her small rent consistently without ever seeming to sell anything major. One evening, Torvin cornered her as she was lighting the evening lamp. He was massive, draped in heavy silks, and his eyes glittered with proprietary interest. "Maria, my dear," he purred, though there was no warmth in his voice. "You have a secret. You are too poor for such steady providence. Tell me, what is the source of your sudden, anonymous charity? I see you giving, but you never run out." Maria, terrified of losing her home, confessed the existence of the copper coin. She described its appearance and its strange, demanding magic. "It only works, sir," she pleaded, clutching her hands tight, "when I give it away at a cost to myself, with no expectation of personal return. The coin judges the intent of the kindness, not the size of the gift." Torvin threw back his head and laughed. "Nonsense, child. Kindness is leverage, nothing more. A coin is currency. Currency is power. Your mistake is that you are using gold to buy copper. Give me the coin. I will show you how to use magic to buy a kingdom." Maria resisted, but Torvin, massive and determined, simply snatched the coin from her open palm. It felt cold and lifeless in his hand, a dull piece of metal. Torvin went immediately to the most exclusive jeweler in Viridia and bought a magnificent, star-cut sapphire necklace worth more than Maria's entire village. He spent his own gold for it, justifying the expense as a necessary investment. He went to Lord Varick's stately home. He presented the necklace to Varick's vain wife, declaring, "My lord, this gift is a testament to my deep respect for the compassion your wife shows to the city's unfortunates. I offer it from my heart, in thanks for the just leadership you provide." He paused dramatically, then, with a flourish, he placed the coin of alms into the magistrate's palm, a final, small token. "And this humble copper coin," Torvin explained smoothly, "is a good luck charm. I insist you keep it, my lord. It is quite old." The magistrate, accustomed to receiving gifts large and small, accepted the sapphire and slipped the copper coin into his waistcoat pocket without a second glance. Torvin returned home that night, already planning his massive future empire. When Torvin woke the next morning, his heart pounded with excitement. He reached into his own pocket, fully expecting the coin of alms to have returned, perhaps with the deed to the riverfront contract or a solid bar of gold. The coin was there, but beside it was not gold, nor a deed, but a single, shriveled, rotten pear, still oozing brown, sticky liquid. Torvin stared at the fruit, disgusted. He tossed the pear onto the floor. "This is a jest." He tried again. He took the coin and went to the marketplace. He bought 100 sacks of grain and gave them to a beggars' collective, declaring loudly how much he cared for the poor. The entire marketplace applauded his apparent generosity. He returned home and waited. The next morning, the coin was back in his pocket. Beside it was not a reward, but a notice of summons, an official, binding legal document demanding that Torvin appear before the magistrate's court to answer for past building code violations that he had spent years covering up. The violations were minor, but the fine would be ruinous. Torvin felt a chill of dread. The coin, he realized, was not a blessing for him. When he gave it away, it amplified the reality of his own intentions. The first time, it returned with a rotting pear, the symbol of his selfish, poisonous heart. The second time, when he used charity, as a shield for his corruption. It returned with the exact hidden burden he had tried to mask. The coin didn't give him what he wanted. It showed him what he was. Terrified, Torvin, certain the coin was cursed, flung it out of his window and swearing he would never touch it again. The coin rolled silently down the steep, slick cobblestones, across the main thoroughfare, and settled softly on the worn threshold of Maria's tenement door. Maria found it that evening, sitting clean and glowing slightly on her doorstep. She picked it up, and it was warm. Her heart swelled, not with avarice, but with a deep, quiet gratitude. She went to bed, expecting perhaps a piece of cheese or a new wick for her lamp. When she awoke, the coin was back. Beside it lay a simple, folded piece of parchment. It was the deed to the entire tenement building. The accompanying note, written in elegant script, explained that the property had been bought anonymously by a city official, Lord Varick, shamed by the sudden sight of his own greed when he held the coin, and was being transferred to the kindest, most deserving soul in the neighborhood. Maria realized the coin had not bought the building. It had simply made the hearts of the powerful clear enough to see where true worth resided. Maria used the inheritance not for herself, but to start the Alms House, a small, humble charity where everyone, regardless of their station, could find food, warmth, and dignity. She understood the final lesson. The coin of kindness was not a source of magical wealth, but a perfect moral mirror. It taught her that every truly selfless act creates an account in the universe, and that the only currency that guarantees a positive return is the purity of the heart. The greatest treasure is not what you gain, but the goodness you lose yourself in when helping another. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe the channel and like the video. Thank you.